All right, welcome back to Double Fries No Slaw, a Saturday noon episode. Richie, we don't do that very often, especially when there's live college football on, but I just didn't know if we could wait till Sunday. I felt like we had some things to say. So here we are. Hopefully you're enjoying college football Saturday or you're avoiding it, like I'm sure many of you are. But we are here to talk about Florida State losing on the road at Virginia, 46-38 in double overtime. I'll quickly just give Guthrie some love. You can visit all three of their locations and drown your sorrows if you're in Tallahassee. 1818 West Tennessee Street, 2550 North Monroe, and 2870 Appalachia Parkway. Appreciate Guthrie's for all that they do and all their support. Listen, greasy chicken tenders are a good way to kind of get back like some of your good vibes and stuff. So appreciate Guthrie's for all that they do. Richie, Florida State drops a game to Virginia that, in all honesty, they had no business dropping to them. I think the thing that stuck out to me the most was, well, it was certainly the defensive line, which we'll get to that in a minute. But when I think about a team, like how does an upset happen? You give a team life early. And Florida State was so incredibly sloppy early. They had the fumble on the Sawchuck run. They should have had another fumble, if not for a replay helping them and it turning into, they said it was incomplete. Tommy's interception down inside the 5-yard line, and then Tommy's fumble too. Tommy fumbled the ball, remember, at the 1-yard line, and you're lucky that non-round football bounced out of bounds instead of going through the end zone. Because if that goes through the end zone, you're looking at 4 turnovers there. So they were just so sloppy early. And I know we'll get to other things in a minute. I don't know if it was a lack of focus or just first time playing on the road or what, but to me, that's what gave Virginia life. If you wouldn't have done that, right? If you don't give them that short field early to give them a touchdown, and then if you don't take a touchdown away from yourself by throwing that interception, I mean, you're probably up 14-7 in this game. And then you kind of start to roll a little bit. You get up by 17 or 21 or whatever it ends up being, and they never have a shot. But they were sloppy early, and that let a very scrappy, very talented team stick around and the crowd stay into it, which it was a good atmosphere for Virginia. And the sloppiness early really set the tone for this game. Richie Freeze, I teed him up there. I put him totally up on a tee, and then I lost him. You back?
Yeah.
No, Richie's not back. He's tricking right now. I'll keep going for a minute until he gets back in here. But to me, if that's the way that you start, that Florida State was always chasing the game. And they certainly took the lead when at 21-14. I think we all felt better, but they started sloppy. And so that let a team that you were better than, and statistically you played better than, that let the team stick around. Richie, go ahead.
Yeah, I just think it was a ton of self-inflicted wounds during the game. You know, it was unfortunate because I think watching the game, I know you were there. Florida State was clearly the better team. They just gave Virginia way too many, freebies, so to speak. You know, we talked about how we got lucky on a couple of them. The one catch that should have been a fumble, which was not called a fumble. That was kind of frustrating that, you even allow that to potentially happen. And then just everything else that went on in the game. You mentioned that, Tommy's fumble on the 1-yard line, that would have been a touchback if it had just gone an extra 6 inches or so past the pylon. But Earl Little, again, some people might call it ticky-tack, the 15-yard personal foul. However, if you watch the replay, I mean, it's not like it was unwarranted. He definitely pushed the guy after the whistle, well after the whistle, and Virginia scores on that drive. Just a lot of things that went wrong for Florida State that were, not.
Yeah, I'm losing Richie a little bit here. This is the maybe the problem with live videos. Maybe we should go back to Sunday. This is my fault. But yeah, the penalties early. What do we have? Like 40 yards worth of penalties in the first quarter or so. You had the 15-yard. You had a big holding call, bring a play back. They were sloppy all over. Richie, I don't know why your computer doesn't like us today, but they were so sloppy all over. You were mentioning the potential turnovers. The penalties were bad early. Just doing dumb stuff after the whistle. Shoot, Jabril Rawls at the very end of the game, you talk about like composure. Jabril Rawls almost cost you the game before it even got to overtime. You get the stop on third down, and they literally had to yank his back play. I don't know if they showed this on TV, but he was jawing it up with the UVA wide receiver. And they literally had to pull him back before he got a 15-yard penalty. And that would have been the end of the game. We had no timeouts left. And there was the 2 minute, it was just about the 2 minute warning. So the slop fest continued all day.
Yeah. And on that one, I'll say, I think, people hate on the ACC refs a lot, and for good reason. But I think they did Florida State a favor, because if that happened in the second quarter, that would have been a personal foul. I think they said, this game, let's let somehow cooler heads prevailed, and the ref thought to himself, let's let the players decide this game, because at any other point in that game, that would have been a personal foul.
Yeah, no, I mean, I said this too. I was on a radio show this morning, and I thought Florida State, we'll get to the defense in a minute because I'm still so shocked by the way they played, but they were not good enough in all three phases. And I know the offense put up 38 points. I understand they had over 500 yards, but when you think about the offensive turnovers, when you think about missing a field goal that would have prevented overtime from even happening, and then you think about the way the defense played, they were not good enough in all three phases. And that really surprises me, because usually if you win 2 of 3 of the phases, you win the game. And if Florida State would have won any of the 2 or 3 phases in this thing more decisively, they'd have won the game. If they'd have won all 3 phases, they'd have won the game by 30. Like there's no doubt. But they weren't good enough in every facet of the game, which is so insane to me. Like Virginia, what are they, 4-1 now, 3-1? Yeah, they're fine. No, they're 4-1 at this point. They're fine, but they're not a great team. And there's no reason. And then we can transition this to the defensive line. I don't know what the hell the defensive line was doing. Like if I'd have told you that you're going to hold Bama under 100 yards and then Virginia was going to run it down your throats and you were going to get no push there, they made Ty Simpson more uncomfortable than they made Chandler Morris last night. How is that the case?
So let's get to the defensive line, but real quick, one last thing on offense that really bothered me about this game is that the interception that Tommy threw inside the 10-yard line, because you were coming off back-to-back 16-yard rushes, and then you try a somewhat gadget play to get in the end zone on 1st and goal. Why not just run the ball? Keep running, keep doing what was working. And I'm really happy with the hire of Gus Malzahn. I think he's done a great job this season, but that call made no sense to me whatsoever. And that really bothered me in the moment. And the more I think about it today, it's easy to, I guess we'll call it Saturday morning quarterbacking, but it just, what were we doing there? You're running the ball. They cannot stop you. Just keep doing what's working. And I think we got a little cute there. It reminds me of that New Orleans LSU game when we decided to do a pitch on the goal line and we fumbled it and LSU gets it back. Luckily, Florida State won that game. But again, keep it simple. That's all I wanted them to do. And in that moment, obviously it's a freak play. It's very rare. The same player who tips a pass, has the ball fall right into their hands. But, I think that was the defining moment of the game.
I agree with getting too cute. I thought they did that a couple of times. And I really don't want to harp on the offense because they put up 38 points. And so it's hard to, I know there's a lot more deficiencies and we can talk about the defense here in a minute, but on going for 2, people have asked about going for 2. Should you have done that or not? I think they would have considered going for 2 if they didn't have to get gimmicky 3 other times already. You think about the jump pass, you think about running it in with Pittman, you think about like kind of the fake reverses that they've done and stuff like that. If they didn't have to use those, I thought they used like 3 2-point plays on 4th and goal, on 1st and goal, in like must score situations. They were always trailing in this game. So you had to get the touchdowns and stuff. But if you wouldn't have had to use them then, maybe they would have been in your back pocket to use them to not go to overtime. But it was strange to me that Florida State felt the need to get gimmicky in a game in the second quarter or in a game in the third quarter, whatever it was. Like I would rather you just line it up and go. That 4th and 1. So Florida State gets the stop. They finally get their first stop of the second half to end up going and tying it up, and they did a good job with that. They finally get their first stop there. The reason they had to get that stop is because on a 4th and 1, you ran a play action to try and get a deep shot with 5 minutes to go or 4 minutes to go, instead of just lining up and going and getting the yard. Like Sawchuck can't go get that yard, or Chromont can't go get that yard. If you can't go get a yard against this UVA front, you don't deserve to win the game. And so they got bailed out. The defense finally got a stop, and they did a good job of going and scoring there, and doing it with no timeouts. So there were some good things, but they were so gimmicky. And it feels like when the team gets inside the 5, either they don't trust Tommy enough. I mean, even I don't want to say a screen pass is gimmicky, but with the motion and the screen pass that got tipped and picked off, yeah, like you got to keep running the ball. Now they load the box. I get that, man. You've got Deuce Robinson out there. Throw the ball up and let him catch it. Like pull a Mike Evans, like Florida State or like Tampa Bay does. So I don't know, man. Like that was frustrating too. Again, I'm not trying to harp so much on the offense. Maybe we should crap on the defense a little bit while we're here. But some of that was weird. Some of that play calling was weird. At the end of the day, the offense scored 35 points in regulation. You had 500 yards of offense. You turned the ball over once inside the 5. You should win this game, right? Like there's no doubt you should have won it. But
I think obviously it's easy to wake up today and say we should have gone for 2 after that last touchdown. I wish we had, but in the moment I thought it was the right call, because I
had no problem with it.
That told me Mike trusted his offense and his defense and his kicker, who had missed a field goal earlier in the game. But that told me Mike said, we are the better football team. We can go to overtime and win this game. You know what? If the roles were reversed, Virginia probably does go for 2. And obviously it's easy again to wake up and say they should have done it and we could have got it. And we're 4-0 right now. But Mike made, in my opinion, the right call in the moment.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with him going and just getting the extra point. I had no problem with that at all, because your defense had just gotten a stop.
Correct.
And it was in overtime, it's a compressed field, right? And so you have basically the back of the end zone playing defense for you too. So I didn't really have a big problem with that. UVA wasn't going to be able to spread you out, and you had just gotten a stop when you knew they were running the ball. Now it didn't work out. I know it did work out Florida State's way. After they kicked the field goal in overtime, UVA had to settle for a field goal. So your defense went out and got you that stop that you needed. If you had scored a touchdown there, you'd have put UVA on a 4th and 7-ish, and they'd have had to, go for it on 4th and 7. You may win the game right there, kind of like you did against Clemson last year, where you scored first and they didn't convert a 4th down. But yeah, I thought tying it up was the right call. All right, on the defense, if I'd have told you that Florida State was going to hold Alabama to like 80 yards rushing and then UVA was going to go for over 200, how crazy would you have thought I was?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you wouldn't have believed that. And it was, again, a lot of self-inflicted wounds. I forget which play or what point in the game it was, but there was one play where, I'm watching on TV, so I have a better vantage point than you had. And, we had 2 linebackers, and they were both kind of on top of the tackles. And the middle of the field was wide open. And I think that's one of the plays where the Virginia's quarterback just takes off and runs for a big gain. And then, he found a lot of players. I know we're talking about the rushing defense, but which was horrific. But they kept running. I'm not sure what Tony White was doing. And again, we're not the X's and O's podcast or X's and O guys, but just even as a casual fan sitting on the couch watching, I'm wondering, like, what are we doing defensively? Like, what are we trying to achieve here?
Yeah.
And, and we could not stop their number 3. I forget the guy's name. He kind of got every extra yard that was available to him. And to have such a great defensive line, and that was frustrating. The announcers on the call kept saying time and time again, like, this massive defensive line, and then Virginia kind of did what they wanted on the ground outside of 1 or 2 drives.
Yeah, no, I still don't even comprehend. And okay, so it's again hard to see this in person, but it felt like we never. Could you see when Morris hurt his hand? Like, did they show that?
Yes, they did. He
was right in front of us when it happened, and he was literally like hobbled over.
He threw the ball and his hand like ricocheted up and hit his own helmet.
Yeah, you could tell that he was messed up, and
so you knew they were going to run it.
Yeah, he runs back to the line, and they run it every play for the rest of that drive. And
11 straight runs.
Yep. What are we doing here where we don't recognize that and bring more guys down into the box? Like try and prevent this from happening. That was so weird to me that we didn't adjust that. And then, my gosh, can we cover one thing underneath? Like the playbook is out on how to beat FSU. If they load the box, you go with these little mesh routes, these concepts where you're just running guys. They were so content. We played them well, like down the field. Got some picks. Some of those are arm punts because they went pretty far. But like we played them pretty well down the field. There were guys wide open all night, crossing over for 4 and 5 yard gains. And we were so far backed off. It's like we were scared to get beat deep. And so we were like, yeah, take your 6 to 8 yards of play up front. And we got no problem with it. The fact that we didn't adjust to that, our halftime adjustments, again, and I like Mike. I had a lot of confidence in Tony before this game, and it's just one game. I like this coaching staff. But what did we do at halftime? Like, I truly did. Like, I was nervous at halftime. It was 21-21. I took a little walk around the concourse, and I thought, okay, we will adjust defensively. We'll change the way that we will limit some of what they're doing. We'll make them beat us deep. And I don't know if we just went in there and sang Kumbaya or what, but we didn't make one halftime adjustment. And that is insane to me. We never brought more guys down into the box. We never started covering the mesh concepts where they were coming across the middle for 5 and 6 yards and then turning it upfield for like 12. I don't know. Again, I'm not the staff. I don't make millions of dollars to do this thing, right? So maybe they've got an answer for it. But to just not adjust at all and just say like, yeah, we're going to keep trying to do what we're doing, even though it hasn't worked once, we're going to keep, the only time we made plays was when Morris literally just like, all right, somebody's down there, throw it up. And we caught a couple of punt interceptions, right? One of them off a tip. So I don't know. That was so weird to me. And it wasn't as bad as the defense was, as bad as the actual players on the field were. I thought the coaching defensively was pretty terrible too.
Yeah, and I don't know if they just thought, in that locker room, we would be winning by 14 points right now if not for the turnovers, the dumb penalties, different things like that. So why change up? Let's just clean those things up and everything will take care of itself. But, I mean, that doesn't change the fact that Virginia was, again, like running kind of all over you, and which I never would have guessed. You mentioned it. Like after – Alabama, the way they completely shut them down after that first drive, their rushing attack, you would never expect Virginia to be a team of all people, of all teams, to be the ones to punch you in the mouth time after time again. And that's kind of what we ended up seeing. And they're going to have to do some soul searching because they got a big game coming up a week from today, and they have some big boys up front. So this week is vital if you want to try and save the season. Let me ask you this real quick. Would you had rather lost a close game to Bama but beat Virginia? And I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would not change how it's gone. I understand the thinking, and I could take it or leave it, right? Like both are kind of acceptable, unacceptable, but acceptable. I think what the win for Bama did from a confidence standpoint was really big. I think it'll give them more confidence when they play Miami this week coming up. So I still would lean Bama, but
I think I would too.
For the ACC, I get it. For just, you can take, I know we hate moral victories. You can take a moral victory away from a loss from Virginia, from Bama, and then you win this Virginia game and you still feel pretty good. You wouldn't be, you want to tell you this? If you'd have lost to Bama close and then been 3-1 by beating Virginia, you might just now be in the top 25, right? Like, correct. So you'd be ranked a little bit lower. Not that rankings mean a ton right now, but about the same. But I think I'd take the Bama win. Winning that game in week one kind of it made you care about this game. Would you, if you'd have lost to Bama, would you even care about losing this one? I mean, you would, right? Because you're a fan. Yeah. But if you'd have lost this one, and I know that wasn't your exact scenario. I know you were saying if you won this one. But if you'd have lost to Bama, most of us wouldn't even have cared about the last 3 weeks of football. We wouldn't have cared about East Texas A&M. We wouldn't have cared about Kent State. And we would have said, whatever happens in this one happens, and then we'll see what happens against Miami. So I think I'd still take the Bama win for just like a program win.
So I think I agree with you. One, my wife is a Bama fan, so it's been a fun month as far as that goes. But the good thing, this is not a few years ago where you have to get to your conference championship game to have a chance to win a national title. And I'm not saying Florida State's there. They clearly showed last night they have a lot of opportunity. But you can go 10-2 theoretically. Say Bama beats Georgia tonight, that win looks so much better.
Yeah.
So I do think that was important. So say you upset Miami next Saturday, and then you run the table in the ACC. Clemson does not look very difficult, or it'll be a tough game. It's always Clemson. It's in Death Valley, but that's a very winnable game. And I would not be surprised if Florida State is favored, especially if they end up beating Miami. But even if you go 7-1 and somehow miss out on Charlotte, if you're 11-1, even 10-2, you have an outside shot of getting into a 12-team playoff. So I agree. I think what I would love to see the booster numbers after Florida State beat Alabama, and the excitement of this program that we have not felt since we beat Georgia Tech and Charlotte in 2023. So I agree with you. It was just a question because obviously it's a conference game versus a non-conference game, so it holds a little more weight. But the good thing with 12-team playoff, you do not need to get to Charlotte to get into the playoff anymore.
Let me give Sleeper some love, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the good in this game. Make sure that you are using our code DFNS for 100% match on the Sleeper app. We appreciate Sleeper for their support. There's a ton of picks that you can go make right now. You can do them for the night games. Obviously, LSU Ole Miss is big. There's some stuff for Bama UGA, the Penn State Oregon game, and then every other game that's happening as well. There's some free NFL picks that you can go get. Use our code for 100% match up to $100. That's DFNS on the Sleeper app. We appreciate Sleeper for their support. Make sure you check their terms and conditions because terms of use do apply. Richie, offensively, I thought we were pretty good. I know we nitpicked a little bit on some of the play calling, some of the things we did. Tommy impressed me with this, and I know it didn't work out our way, but I did not have a lot of confidence in Tommy to just sit back there and throw when you knew the pass was required, right? When you can have the potential of his legs in a play, that's what opens up things in the passing game for him a lot more. But when we needed to complete passes, there was a 4th and 5 that we threw to Deuce. He had a couple of nice back shoulder throws to Deuce. Obviously, the game-tying touchdown on 4th and 11, the one that should have been the game-tying touchdown or put you within 2 in overtime. That wasn't on Tommy. He did a good job, I thought, of, look, they know you're passing it, dog. Like, this is not, you're not just getting a free play because of your legs or anything like that. I thought he did a really good job managing the game late and put you in a position to continuously tie. We were chasing the entire second half. He put you in a good position to go up and tie it every single time. Wasn't his fault. The Deuce dropped it. None of that. So, yeah, I'm not trying to silver lining everything or everything's okay. Tommy was more impressive than I thought he would be.
His numbers weren't amazing. I think it was 18 for 32. But to your point, in the big moments when we needed a play and he had to use his arm, he delivered.
Yeah.
He sent the game to overtime with an absolute dime to the front corner of the end zone over there.
Where only we could catch it.
Yeah. And even in overtime, I still think it's 50-50. I think that should have been a catch, the Deuce Robinson in overtime. But regardless of that, he put the ball exactly where it needed to be. He showed that no moment was going to be too big for him because in the most crucial moments, he put the ball where it had to be. Now, some people may say, well, what about the interception on 4th down and double overtime? It doesn't matter to me. There were many moments where we needed him to make a play, and he did. And I hope Norvell can channel that and really show that in the film room. Say, look at this. Look what you did on 4th and 5. Look what you did on 4th and 11. Look what you did here in this situation. I think you can honestly expand his confidence despite how that game ended. His poise, and you would expect that from a 5th-year college player at this point?
Yeah.
I think you would expect that from someone like that, but not everybody is wired like that. And he clearly showed that he is, because no moment last night, in a game that had a lot of pressure on them. Clearly, no moment was too big for him.
Yeah, you know how when your team is chasing, it's much easier to play with the lead, obviously. And when your team is chasing, when we got the ball back with like 2 minutes to go and no timeouts, I did not think, I was like, man, we just did it. Like we just went down and scored on them. Can we do it again? And I didn't think we could, like not to doubt or whatever. And that was the one where we tied it up with like 37 seconds left or something like that. I didn't think we could go do it again. And he led them right down the field. And I know it took until fourth down, but he did do it. And then he did it again in overtime, right? Not his fault the Deuce dropped the ball or that they ruled it incomplete. And on that, I think they should the call on the field should have stood. It looked like to me that he was not bobbling it, but he was tucking it. That's not changing. That's not losing possession. You are actively tucking the ball, but whatever. If it had been Miami last year, they'd have ruled it a touchdown for sure. But
I thought it would have been good in the NFL. Like, if you
I
watch
got that second foot.
slow-mo, he had 2 feet down with possession, in my opinion.
But I mean, that wasn't on Tommy. Like Tommy continued to lead them down, and I thought that was really good. We ran the ball really well. And again, you question kind of how you went away from it, but Tommy had 78 yards rushing. Sawchuk had 74, averaging 4.5 a carry. Chroma had averaged 55.3. Dude, that boy's gonna be amazing, bro. Like that.
Sawchuk and Chroma might be low key the most underrated running back in the country.
Chroma does such a good job of dancing around and turning a 1 yard loss into a 4 yard gain. He had 63 yards, 5.5 a carry, and then Keziah Holmes gave you 2 runs, 16 yards each, actually 32 yards on that. Lucas gave you a 9-yard rush as well, and then Pittman gave you a 2-yard rush for a touchdown. Those guys are. That running back room is so good, man. And the way they can utilize different weapons is really impressive. The way that they fake some of the end arounds and stuff, it obviously keeps the defense off balance. So I like the way that Gus calls that a ton. When it's 4th and 1 on the other team's 20, probably should just line up and go get the yard instead of trying to get the 4th down, but maybe that wouldn't have mattered anyway. It actually kind of probably worked out well for Florida State because UVA just tried to run the ball 3 times instead of trying to throw it. If they'd had like 2 minutes to go, they would have thrown it and just won it in regulation, I guess. But I mean, there was some good to take away. I thought the defensive backs played fairly well. I didn't love the scheme, letting the mesh stuff just kill you all day. The defensive backs made plays on balls. Jerry Wilson had one where obviously that tipped ball with it, the guy ends up catching and running for 25 more yards. That was frustrating, but just unlucky. He made a good play on the ball and just didn't knock it all the way away. I thought the defensive backs played well. Offensive line I thought was pretty good until that last drive. Maybe they were gassed, maybe whatever, but they were getting a little more pressure on Tommy because they were just pinning their ears back and going. But he still delivered the ball pretty well. And I know that Deuce didn't get that last one, but I thought the offensive line play wasn't really that bad either. So anyway, yeah, you're right. But before we go on that, we'll talk a little bit. What now going forward. We'll be on here for a few more minutes and get out of here. But any other thoughts on this game before we kind of move off of it?
Deuce Robinson is a beast. Like I don't care about that last play, whether you call it a drop or a catch. Like I'm not mad at the refs either way because I think it truly was 50-50, even though and of course I am biased, but objectively thinking, I thought that was a catch. I don't know how that call gets overturned, but at the same time, there was a lot of good to take away. And as silly as it sounds, Earl Little had a rough night with the personal foul and the missed tackle late that led to the touchdown. But what it kind of reminded me of is Jalen Ramsey's missed tackle on Trey Mason in Pasadena because it gave you extra time. Yeah. Otherwise, Virginia could have started just to run the clock out and kick a field goal and the game's over. So, it was Earl Little played a phenomenal game. People are going to remember the lowlights as opposed to the highlights. You got to wrap up and make a tackle. I get it, but it's probably better because you ended up in overtime that he missed that tackle. He delivered a big blow, but man, that running back is so good. He really is. And he came from the FCS, I think the announcer said, which is crazy. There's plenty of good to take away. I don't want, the people watching or who listen to this tomorrow think it's all doom and gloom because it's not. I do think Florida State can be very competitive and beat Miami, especially a night game at Doak. I guess my last takeaway from the game is I'm just glad that Squirrel White is still alive.
Yeah, that was insane. All right, this is a good question. Somebody asked the delay, no delay of game in overtime. Yeah, no, I think that was absolutely terrible. When
It would have been an 8-yard play instead of a 3-yard play.
Yeah. And people say, well, they had a timeout. They would have just called that in. You make them use that timeout. You make them think a little bit more about the play they're going to run. You give your defense a little bit more time to set up. You see how they're lining up. So, yeah, they might have used their timeout, but you make them use that. Like, that's important. And then Florida State got the ball back, and UVA wouldn't have been able to use a timeout when Florida State had the ball back.
Well, from what it looked like on the broadcast is the refs went to Tony Elliott and basically said,
and they said, you can't kick a field goal here. Yeah.
The ref should not be giving a heads up to the coach.
The clock should just start.
You need to know the rules.
When the ball is set and the chains are there, you start the play clock. And you can go tell him, honestly, like if they'd have kicked it, I don't even know if they would have let them snap it or not. But if they'd have kicked that, it would have just been no play. Like it would have been, no, you missed the 2-point conversion. You have to go for 2. But the play clock should have started there. That's not why we lost the game. I'm not going like full blame the refs or anything like that. You lost the game because you couldn't tackle. But
the fact that a Power 4 head coach does not understand the rules of college football, and it's not like he hasn't been around for a while, and I'm sure he goes to these off-season coaches meetings all the time. And again, Florida State didn't score, so it could be considered a moot point, but still an extremely egregious move for them to just give Tony Elliott a heads up, completely reset the play clock, and then allow them to come out and run a play. That was ridiculous.
That was insane. I have no clue how that was something that transpired.
The ACC needs to release a statement on that. They really do. They cannot just ignore that. And again, it's not the reason we lost the game. By no means am I saying that. But that is still ridiculous because what if Florida State had scored in the second overtime and then they did convert their 2-point conversion, they win the game. Like it literally could have.
You were inches away from it too with Deuce. Yeah.
In the playoff picture, whatever it may be.
Yeah. I couldn't believe that I was in the Florida State section, obviously in that other corner away from that end zone. And everybody was yelling, run the clock. And they're going over there. And I just, again, ACC. Yeah, let's talk about what we do going forward. Quickly before we do that, we are doing a tailgate for the Miami game. I know that some of the hype around that may not be as exciting. That's still a sellout. We'll still have a ton of fun. Go to fsumiami.eventbrite.com. That's not even the right link there at the bottom. It's FSU Miami, not FSU Bama. fsumiami.eventbrite.com. Come tailgate with us. We will see you out there at Doak on Saturday. You kind of asked about this a little bit, but just thoughts on the mindset going forward. Like Tommy said after the game, maybe we needed this as like a wake up call. We felt ourselves a little too much. I don't really buy into the whole look ahead thing. I don't know if you have a take on that or not, but I don't buy into the whole like look at they were looking ahead. I thought they tried hard. They just weren't very sharp and they couldn't tackle. I don't think the defense wasn't wrapping up because they were thinking about Miami. I just think they weren't the tougher team. So I hate that it had to come in a loss, but maybe it re-energizes them. I'll tell you this. I think that it probably got their focus a little bit more. I don't know that it's going to make them better football players, but it probably got their focus a little bit more. And so you hate that had to come in a loss. You'd like to find a way to win that thing late and then get your focus with being 4-0. But thoughts on the team moving forward mentally?
Yeah, I think film review will not be fun for several players because, again, Virginia didn't just go out and beat you. You kind of beat yourselves. And I know that sounds cliche to say. And, I'm making excuses. I'm not. Like, you need to be more disciplined as a football team. Florida State had a lot of penalties early on that, again, it wasn't just the refs picking on Florida State. I saw, I have a group chat with a lot of very irrational Florida State fans that I went to college with saying, the refs want the upset. I'm like, no, like that's a valid call. Like it sucks. Could it have been a non-call? Sure, it could have been. But I think maybe when they play Miami, and it's going to be difficult because it's an emotional game. It's a huge rivalry. I think it's Florida State's biggest rival when you look at the fact that they've cost us more national titles than any other team in the country has ever costed us. But I think Earl Little, if he gets into a situation where things get heated, he might remember this game and take a step back and say, okay, let me just go to the sideline, right? As long as this team takes this as a learning opportunity to move forward, I think it could potentially be a good thing. Obviously, you want to win. Like, no loss is a good thing, but the learning moments that they had, I think, could help them the rest of this season. Because if you get past Miami, I mean, there's no reason you can't win out. Like, Miami's a tall task. They'll probably be favored, if I had to guess, anywhere from 7.5 to 9.5 points. But Bama was favored by what, 13.5? Like the spread doesn't matter, but it gives you an idea. But I do think if they use these moments to learn and correct their mistakes, it could end up being a good thing in the long run.
Yeah, I think you have to. After the Bama game, we got way too high, right?
Yes.
Which is expected. And after this, you're way too low. And that's what happens when we're doing a recap show less than 24 hours after a big win or a big loss, right? You're going to get way too high, way too low. I do think they'll adjust some things. And I do have confidence that Tony White is, I've seen all the comments, go ahead and go to UCLA and stop taking the UCLA Zoom meetings and everything else. I don't think he's a bad defensive coordinator.
No,
and
I
do have some, I think they have I have some confidence in them to be able to adjust. The biggest issue with it right now is that Miami's really freaking good. There's no doubt. And like, neither of us like Miami, but I think we're both pretty honest. Like, they're really good.
Yeah,
and so you get a test like right off the bat. It's not you play Wake and Stanford and even Pitt, and then you get Miami later. You get some games to work out the kinks. You got to go do it right away. And that could either be really, really good or really, really bad. Because Miami could come in and run. If this team just ran for 220, Miami could go for 250. They could name their number. If you don't adjust, if you don't figure out a way to bring more guys into the box, make Beck beat you with his arm. If he does that, I think, honestly, this is not our Miami preview yet. We'll be back on Wednesday night to do that. But if you don't, he make him beat you with your arm, right? Because if not, they can name their number on the ground. The way that UVA just pushed you around, Miami's got the best offensive line in the conference, maybe top 5 in the country. They're really good. And the running backs are good too. Fletcher, Lyle, all those guys. So if you're going to let UVA run for that kind of yardage on you, buckle up. Get your chin strap ready because Miami's going to beat the hell out of you doing it. And so the test comes quickly. If you can, and yeah, I think Miami would be about a touchdown favorite, right? They were only a touchdown favorite against Florida. So that kind of makes me think that they'll probably set the line somewhere similar to that. Especially since it's on the road in Doak. It would surprise me if it was all the way up to 10, but we'll see. If you can go out and play well against Miami, win or loss, right? You should have confidence the rest of the way. But if you lose to Miami by 17, like Florida did, or 20, or whatever their total was, I think I lost by 19. If you lose to them in embarrassing fashion at home, then what's that do for the rest of the year? What's that do for your confidence, right? You were very close to this one. And you didn't play very well, and you were still very close against Virginia, like inches away. When you think about that Deuce Robinson catch, boy, my heart could not have taken the whole 2-point conversion thing at the end. So, I mean, I wish you would have gone to that, obviously, because I didn't want to lose. But man, that would be stressful. Gus would really have to get in his bag at that point. But I do think that the team has typically, and last year being very much an anomaly to the rest of the tenure, the team has typically responded well to adversity. That doesn't mean I think they're going to come out and beat Miami. I'm 90% sure I'll pick Miami when we do this on Wednesday night. But they have responded well. They responded well to being down 14-0. They responded well to being down 7 in the fourth quarter twice last night. I think they respond pretty well. The problem is it's not just all about effort. The guys have to be physically tougher because last night they were the softer team and just call it what it is. They were the more poorly coached team. Like there's no doubt that Virginia took advantage of our weaknesses and we didn't do that defensively. We got a guy with a sprained hand out there, a sprained throwing hand, and you didn't take advantage of that. That's just, I mean, at the end of the day, that's poor coaching, right? Like you got to make that guy beat you deep when he's playing with half a hand. So that is frustrating to me. And so there needs to be a lot of accountability, not only from the players, but from the staff. The staff has to, not that the players deserve any grace, because at the end of the day, tackling is tackling. But the coaching staff needs to take a hard look in the mirror too and put guys in better positions to win games. I thought Gus did a pretty good job. I don't think we did a very good job defensively. Again, how much impact is what Knighton's doing? have on the defensive line, I mean, he is the defensive line's coach. So when it's your worst unit on the field, it's hard to not say like, Doug, that needs to be a little bit better. So I don't know, big opportunity for them. There's still a ton of winnable games. Like if you had to ask me right now, I'd probably say they're most likely going 8-4, right? I don't have confidence that they're just going to mow everybody over. Could they get to 9-3? They get to 10-2? Absolutely. But there's a lot of tough stuff down. There's a lot of physical teams on this schedule. Florida is going to be a physical team, whether they're good or not. Clemson will be a physical team, whether they're good or not. NC State will be a physical team on the road. Pitt will be a physical team under Narduzzi. And if you can lose to Virginia, you could lose to any of them as well. So I don't know. Did you lose me for a second or am I still going?
No, you're still going.
My screensaver literally came on while I'm doing a video. I'm like, what are we doing here? I guess I got to move my mouse a little bit. But yeah, the test comes quickly. And you go out. I'll say this. You go out and beat Miami, which is not my prediction at this moment. You go out and beat Miami. It doesn't undo this, but you would jump ahead of them in the conference standings because they would have a loss and you'd have the tiebreaker. So the opportunity is there to, again, I'm not saying undo this, but kind of make up for it, right? You beat Miami and then you look at the rest of the schedule the same way you look at this in a negative light right now. You look at the rest of the schedule. If you beat Miami and you say, yeah, ain't a team on here as good as them, not even close to a team as good as they are. So if you go beat them, why can't you win everything else? You go 11-1, you're going to Charlotte, I would believe. So anyway,
it's pretty rare you get a undefeated national champion, right? And it's not going to be uncommon to see a 2-loss team end up in the college football playoff. And that's why I think, looking big picture, do I think we're going to the college football playoff? Probably not, right? But if Alabama beats Georgia tonight, that's that feather in your cap just got a little bit bigger because you knocked off that team. And now you have a huge opportunity. You're going to be playing the number 2 team in the country in Miami. And if you're at home, you have the home field advantage. Doak is going to be absolutely electric on Saturday night. And again, we'll preview the game in detail Wednesday, but a huge opportunity. And Norvell, he has some opportunities, right? We all agree with that, whether it be recruiting or some other things, but he is a good motivator. And it's clear that the players that play for him truly love him. Look at a guy like Jermaine Johnson. I think he's the prime example. I remember Jeff Cameron telling the story when he was at Mike Norvell's house when he had the whole team over there. He was talking to Jermaine before he had even played a snap. He's like, why'd you come here? And Jermaine Johnson pointed to Mike Norvell and said, that guy right there. That's why I came here. I think the team, I think their mental will not be the issue. I think even though they did lose last night, I think going down 14-0 on the road in front of not really a full house, which is surprising, but a pretty loud crowd, and responding to score 21 unanswered, even though they lost the game, they're not going to panic if Miami goes up, 14-3 or something. So I don't know. I think the team is still in a good mental mindset. That they're probably not today because they probably realize it and feel like they let one get away from them that they should have won, and they absolutely should have won that game. But I think, to your point, if they get blown out by Miami, we could be looking at 6-6.
Yeah.
But if they beat Miami, or if it's just a close game like we saw last night, I agree. 8-4, 9-3 is probably still realistic.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the schedule, and I have a hard time seeing them losing to Wake, Stanford, or Virginia Tech at this
Stanford's
point.
Horrible.
Yeah. So I think 6-6 is probably your floor. And I think there's a lot of winnable games outside of that. I think Pitt's very winnable. NC State's very winnable. Clemson and Florida are, going to be tough, but winnable for sure. Based on if either one of those programs can turn things around. It's hard to know what will happen in November. But yeah, your floor, I think is 6-6, and your ceiling is probably like 9-3, 10-2 ish, right? 10-2 maybe backdoors you if one of those wins is against Miami. 9-3, you'd need a lot of stuff to go your way. 9-3, and you're probably going to the Pop-Tart Bowl, which is not terrible. We would both get to go out there and do a tailgate.
It's in Orlando.
So, yeah, YOLO. But we'll see. Yeah, Listen, I showed up last night. I did my job, Richie. I did what I was supposed to do last night, and unfortunately, it wasn't enough. So you guys can't blame me for this one. All right, let's go watch some football, dude. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, you go watch football. I'm done after last night for this. I'm watching the Ryder Cup, and Europe is kicking our ass right now.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds worse than watching football as a red-blooded American. I was watching some of it before the game. Hey, let me tell you something. The bar scene in Charlottesville is terrible, but yeah, I was watching some of it before the game, and it was just atrocious. So,
we're getting waxed right now too.
I don't know how we were a favorite in this thing. I couldn't bet against us because I'm a good American, but whatever, man. Thanks, Vegas, for the.
I chose not to bet.
Yeah, I just was like, I don't feel bad doing it, but all right. Double Fries No Slaw. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Listen, I understand this is frustrating, but we'll be here one way or the other. We'll talk it out. Maybe we'll do a call-in show on Tuesday morning. So if you want to call in and complain, feel free to do that on Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern. That's all I got for today. Appreciate you guys for hanging out. We'll talk to you soon. Go Noles.
Go Noles.